What do we have to do to make something thrive? Not just survive, but thrive.
Let's go. Let's go to space. Hello and welcome everybody to Fridays with Tim. I am Tim, Chief Operating Officer of Orbital Assembly Corporation. And contrary to the mistake I just saw on the slide here, it is not May 13th. It is actually October 14th. And I'm excited to be here with you and answer your questions. So today we're going to be following the typical format we've done in the past, where I'm going to give an update and then we'll have a live Q&A at the end. So stay tuned for that. You can ask your questions in the chat here and we'll get to them at the end. Okay, so to start off with, wanted to go over some highlights. So we've made a number of announcements over the last couple of months, but some of the recent ones, we've announced a new partnership with Cislunar Industries. This photo here is with Dr. Shana Paya, our Director of Medicine. She was recently in Paris and was able to sign that memorandum of understanding with Cislunar Industries in person. We're really excited about Cislunar Industries. They are doing some really cool stuff. So they've done some demonstrations terrestrially where they've remotely operated their equipment. They're involved in metallurgy, so they're melting things down, creating new alloys, reforming metals, casting metals. They really want to create metal processes on orbit, and they're really interested in what we're doing with Pioneer Station because we can provide a hybrid gravity environment. So there's some processes, like certain alloys, that really only work well in a microgravity environment, but then things like 3D printing of metals work best in a gravity environment. So with Pioneer Station, they can do all the processes on orbit without having to down mass material. So we're really excited for being able to make this announcement. We've actually been working with Cislunar Industries for quite some time now, but this is now a formal agreement and announcement, and excited to share that with you. Also, big news. Just made this announcement. I think it was this last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. Actually, it was on Monday. Dream Big World. They are a lifestyle brand. Their CEO, Juan de la Scorain, he's an artist and a motivational speaker. He has a television program in Mexico and is opening up retail stores now related to their brand in Dubai, and I believe Cancun's the next one, and there's some other cities that will be coming soon after that. And he has a whole series of products that he sells through a number of different major brands and corporations. But he's going to be partnering with Orbital Assembly Corporation in the near term to create a metaverse experience. So people can go into their physical stores, for example, in Dubai, they can buy the merchandise along the brand. And then there's going to be this digital component. So people can go in there, they can purchase NFTs, they can purchase experiences to interact with a Pioneer Station in the virtual world. And then once Pioneer Station is operational, then we're going to be able to allow them to have experiences in space. So really excited about that, to where people, for example, can go to their store in Cancun, pay to have this virtual experience, and now they're being remotely teleported to the real Pioneer Station, can interact with things on the station. So giving people who maybe can't afford to actually physically go to space to be able to have a virtual presence in space. That's something really exciting. And so that's something that's going to be ongoing. There'll be more announcements and product releases related to this. It's just the beginning, and excited for Juan's support. Also made an announcement about Micromeat. So Micromeat is a company that is producing artificial meat. Essentially, it's using all organic materials, the natural biological processes, but growing meat. And microgravity in particular offers some benefits to organ growth and different tissue growth. But what Micromeat's focused on is actually edible meats. So growing meat products intended for consumption. So in the near term, Micromeat will provide fresh meat products for people living and working on Pioneer Station. And eventually that market hopefully grows, and there'll be other use cases for that. But we're excited to be able to be a partner with them, because one of the things we're really focused on is the experience of going to space. not just being able to get there, but really making it an experience that's healthy psychologically, physically, emotionally. And so artificial gravity is a major component to that, but also the food that we eat. So making sure that there's fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, things that will allow people to live in a healthy way and also enjoy their stay there, which is important. And along those lines, we made an announcement that we've entered into a partnership. We're working with Dr. Mae Jemison, who's a former NASA astronaut, and her 100-year Starship organization, as well as Dr. Ronke Olabisi, who has a lab at UC Irvine. And the two of them have put together a very comprehensive report on the effects of microgravity on human physiology, as well as what is known and understood about rotational environments and artificial gravity, and looking at the potential for artificial gravity environments, specifically rotational environments, to help offset some of the negative impacts of microgravity. And it's a fantastic report. I've had an opportunity to read through a draft. We were hoping to be able to publicly release it a week or two ago, but these two women are very detail oriented. They're very professional, and so crossing T's, dotting I's, making sure that everything's referenced and polished up before public release. But I can't wait for you on this call to read this, as well as the broader space community, because we really seeing all the data in one place is really impactful. And it really, in my mind, solidifies the case for why we absolutely need artificial gravity if we're going to be sending people up into space, especially for long periods of time. So engineering progress, I think there was a question in here from Kyle Sims about the progress on hardware and engineering. So we have been continuing to work on the engineering for Pioneer Station. Uh, One of the big things we've been working on is defining those customer relation or the vendor relationships. Well, customers and vendors. So the customers, uh, as I mentioned in our last update back in May, we were working really heavily on defining those customers and getting them on board. I've highlighted a few of them here, and that determines the requirement set that we're delivering to be able to meet the needs for those customers. But on the other side of that, on the vendor side, finding the the hardware manufacturers for the various components. So the major systems of our station, we do have agreements in place with the suppliers for those components. And one of the things that we've worked really hard to do, and it's taken quite a bit of effort, is finding the actual source for those components. One thing that happens in aerospace and in a number of industries, honestly, is there's a number of intermediaries who distribute or modify the product before it actually gets to the end user. And so we've done a really made a comprehensive effort to go and find the source vendors for a lot of the different systems and components. So finding the people who are actually going to be making the ECLA systems and the habitation modules and the various avionics and propulsion systems. Lots of conversations going back and forth on requirements, and we're now at a point where we have very solid numbers on what those components are going to cost. So, so one of the things that we're excited to be able to do now is the funds that we're raising right now are going to go right into starting construction on the flight hardware. And if all goes well, we should be starting fabrication on the first module within the next 2 to 3 months. And we're on schedule for our initial announced date for Pioneer Station. And hopefully with further refinements, we'll be able to exceed those expectations. But regardless, we're making sure everything's being done safe and in a proper way. Also with engineering, we've had multiple conversations with the different testing agencies who are going to be testing the various components. And we've also been in talks with other entities who I can't make an announcement yet, but entities with a lot of experience in developing space stations and working with their staff and their personnel on learning some of the challenges and opportunities and lessons learned from work on ISS over the last 20 years. We've also been out spreading the message. So I was recently invited to speak at the Space Underwater Tourism. Wait, Space? It's the what is it? Underwater Tourism and Space Symposium in Marbella, Spain. That was hosted by Les Roches, which is one of the premier hospitality universities in the world. People come from all over the world to go there and get degrees in business management with a focus on hospitality. So there were a number of people there who their life dream and their whole careers have been in working in hospitality and tourism and hotel management. And I was able to share with them our vision and what Orbital Assembly is working on, as well as talk about the medical uh, issues I was mentioning earlier and why artificial gravity is so important. And one of the really great things about that, and another event coming up in a second, which I'll talk about, is spreading the message to a non-US audience. There's so many people outside the United States who have previously really been limited on their access to space. Even within the United States, there's limited access. But being able to talk to other agencies, other countries, Spain, while we're there, actually just announced that they are going to be forming their own space agency. So being able to engage with the Spanish people, Spanish media, Spanish companies who are really doing some really innovative things in space, uh, just furthering Orbital Assembly's goal of making space accessible to everyone and broadening the reach of space access. And right on the heels of that, this week, Rhonda Stevenson, our CEO, has been in Dubai at the GITEX conference, and that's where we made the announcement of our partnership with Dream Big World. And actually, Rhonda, this is Juan here in the picture with Rhonda. The two of them did a panel conversation and talked about the vision of Orbital Assembly and what we're trying to do, and how that feeds into Dream Big World's brand and objectives of helping people dream big and uh, really pushing the boundaries of what they think is possible for themselves. And then likewise in Dubai, there's so much interest in the international community in access to space and having space platforms. And so while there, Rhonda has been able to engage in those conversations and start to interface with other interested parties beyond just the ones that we think of here in the United States. So we did send out a newsletter earlier this week talking about some changes in our communication profile, in particular this program. So we are going to be trying to, well, we're not trying. We are going to be sending out newsletters now on a regular basis. We're committing to at least once every 2 months, and this will be summary updates of all the things going on. There's really so much happening, and I know we're sending out emails here and there and Twitter, tweet updates and Facebook updates. But being able to consolidate that so you have one source and you can see our progress and where things are going. And apologize here, my face is in the way. I'll take that off. And then these YouTube updates, which we've been calling Fridays with Tim, we're going to shift the focus of those a little bit to where we're going to really focus on our investors who've invested over $1,000 or more, and making these more of an investor engagement. And those investors will be invited to participate live in the Q&A, and then we'll post those on YouTube for later viewing. And then we've started over this last period of doing Zoom calls under NDA with what we're calling our premier investors who've invested over $5,000 or more, and those have gone really well. And in those, we've been able to be a lot more transparent and talking about a lot more details because we are in an NDA, and really getting to know our investors better and have more of one-on-one conversations with them. It's been great to be able to meet and talk with them and get their feedback. So we're going to be continuing to do those, and we look forward to those future engagements. Also, Frank White, the author of The Overview Effect, as well as a number of other books, he has been writing exclusive content for our news site, news.orbitalassembly.com. And there's a number of articles up there right now talking about really the need for space, making the argument for why we should go to space. The next article coming out is actually going to be posted, I think, in a week and a half or so. And I was just reading through the draft of that. It's a great article. He interviewed one of our advisors and one of our hopefully soon partners, Andre Bormanis, who he's a prolific person in the science fiction entertainment world, has worked on Star Trek and the Orville, a number of other works. And then also with Dan Hawk, who is a member. Well, he's the co-founder, or actually, it might be founder of the First Nations Planetary Defense Organization, which has a focus of helping First Nations people in really North America, North and Central America, to get access to space. And this piece is talking about, going into space and how do we do it in an equitable and in such a way that we're building a better future, not necessarily perpetuating problems that have been had in the past. So excellent interview, article, conversation. Look for that, and that's on our news site. And in addition to the printed word, we've been running a podcast called Our Future in Space, which has been hosted by Dr. Jeff Greenblatt and Eric Ward. And we were running these as kind of a trial. The episodes, I think, were airing twice a month. We've now stepped those up to once a month. There's just so many people who want to talk to us, and we want to talk with them, that we're putting these out more. And really, the purpose of these, both this and what Frank White's doing, is, well, there's a couple purposes. One is discussing the why. Why do we feel it's important to go to space? Making that argument for what we're doing and what we plan to do. And also, it's community outreach. We're trying to reach new people, get engaged with new thought leaders and interested parties. In these two programs, as well as the art contest that we ran earlier this year, they might not seem like core to our business, but they're really key to building our customer base. And we found a lot of customers through these different uh, outreach programs, and people that normally we wouldn't have had access to or wouldn't have been interested in us have become part of our ecosystem and are helping in the work. So that's the goal behind these. And also, they're really interesting conversations. I mean, these are the people that we tend to take out. We go to dinner with them at conferences, or they're friends sometimes of people within the organization, and we have these sorts of dinner conversations, and you don't get to be privy to them. So, making these public and having these conversations and being able to share them with you is something that we really enjoyed doing. And so Our Future in Space will be moving to once a week. I think we've already started that. Another thing we're doing also with Our Future in Space is, if you are a subscriber to the YouTube channel, every week Jeff and Eric are going to be doing a drawing to give away some merchandise, some T-shirts and things. This week, the drawing actually there's the first one, and in addition to the Our Future in Space T-shirt, they did a drawing to give away one of Juan de Lescorain's Dream Big World T-shirts. So Juan actually won our art contest on the adult division, and that's how he learned about us. And then he reached out to us later and said, "Hey, we should we should collaborate. We should do some business together." So we gave away 2 shirts this week, but next week I think it's just 1. Anyway, so if you want to be in the drawing for that, subscribe to YouTube. YouTube doesn't give us much other than your name, so you'll have to listen to the show. And if your name is read, then send us an email with your details, and we'll get you the shirt. So with that, we'll turn it over to questions, and there's actually quite a few here I'm seeing in chat. So we'll start at the top here. There's some highs and some looking forward to it. Yep, good to see you. Okay, so we got a question here from Aiden. Aiden's asking, can you use small solar sails for small orbit orientation changes? I think the key point there would be small. So this is actually a great question for Tom Spilker, who understands all these orbital intricacies a lot better than I do. But my understanding would be that the impulse, the force from the solar sails would not be sufficient to really make a difference in the orbit, especially in Leo. In Leo, you're dealing with a number of different forces. You're dealing with the Earth's gravitation, as well as trace particles in the upper atmosphere. So I'm not sure if a small solar sail would work. If you look at the proposals for craft using solar sails, the solar sails are massive. The solar radiation is not a very strong force, so you need to have a large area to actually make a difference. Much easier. There's much easier ways to do that. Our stations, Pioneer and Voyager, will be using chemical propulsion to do orientation and orbit maintenance. there's ISS uses a number of different systems, including gyroscopes, and small satellites can use magnetorquers, which use the Earth's gravitational field to maneuver. Um, our station, since we're in rotation, our chemical propulsion is the way to go for that. Let's see here. Dexter Berry's talking about a company. He says this is a Spain-based aerospace company. I'm not familiar with them. We are not working in aerospike technologies since we're not really building lifting vehicles. But yes, I mean there's for every company that's doing something innovative in the United States, there's probably one or two more companies internationally who are trying to tackle the same problem. So, one of the things we're doing is trying to bring everybody together. Let's work together. Let's collaborate and bring the best of what humanity has to offer. Let's see. Dolly0909 is asking, what's the estimated time frame for your first launch? So we are actually working now to go straight to Pioneer Station. And the first module of Pioneer Station, as I mentioned, we hope to begin fabrication on that within the next 2 to 3 months. And we have 2 potential launch providers that have given us some tentative launch windows for 2025. That would be the latter half of 2025. And so we're shooting for those. Once we start on the fabrication of the flight hardware, then that will start to kick all the other timeline pieces into place. We'll put down the launch deposits. We'll make an announcement about the launch, etc. So, but we're still on track for that launch. I think when we first announced Pioneer Station, we were talking about a 2025 operational date, and we are doing everything we can to keep that date. As I'm sure everybody knows, aerospace, especially space timeframes, tend to be very fluid. There's a lot of unknowns and variables. We would love to be able to buck the trend and stick to our timeframes, but launch service providers and also funding are the two big unknowns. Well, I shouldn't say unknowns. They're 2 pieces that we have little control over. So we're trying to get the funding to where we can then lock in our launch windows. But weather and other factors always impact that. So, but anyways, that's long answer to your short question. Luke Skywalker is joining us today. Welcome, Luke. Lots of emojis talking about the space hotel, and yeah, luckily we don't plan on having any aliens on the space station, but we shall see. Let's see here. We've got got a question from Dan about BN Nano's nanobar material to metals to increase strength and increase heat transfer. So we get questions a lot about various technologies and material innovations. We're watching all those closely. One of the things that we're doing specifically with Pioneer Station is developing in such a way that we are not doing technology development or relying on new technology, if at all possible. And there's 2 main reasons for that. New technology has increased schedule risk and also, operational risk, schedule risk, and price risk. And so we're trying to get a product to market as quickly as possible with as little risk as possible. So for Pioneer Station, we're sticking with pretty traditional, you could almost say boring technologies and materials. So we're looking at things that have already flown, that have been operational in space. The companies who are partnering with us to manufacture the various components have space heritage. They have what's called high TRL, that's technology readiness level. TRL 7 or up is what we're really targeting. So for Pioneer, not so much, but when we start looking at Pioneer version 2 or Voyager station, the subsequent stations and components, that's where we hope to be able to introduce some of these more innovative materials and technologies to take advantage of everything they have to offer. Let's see here. Got a couple more things here. Sin nombre, which in Spanish means without a name, for those of you who don't speak Spanish. But he's asking, or she, with the Fed increasing interest rates, are you finding a more challenging environment for raising the next round of investment? Uh, I think there's a couple of things, not just the Fed increasing interest rates, but also just the state of the economy. So, since really the beginning of this year, we saw the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and that really put a damper on Q1. Everyone was hoping that Q2 would kind of see the end of that conflict and the market stabilizing. We obviously haven't seen that. The conflict continues to go on, and then we've seen record inflation numbers and the economy downturn. Um, there's a lot of different things that impact the ability to raise capital. That being said, we really haven't seen a decrease in interest. There's a not interest as like making money, but interest as in a desire to invest. We're still seeing a lot of people wanting to invest, and it's really more of a question of timing and amount. And so those are some of the things and the conversations we're having is when those investment dollars will be ready and how many are liquid for investment. And so those are some of the things that we're working through. I'm fairly confident that we will be able to raise the amount of money we need to build Pioneer. We're really in the scheme of things for space, Pioneer doesn't cost that much. As I mentioned, I was in Spain recently. I saw some yachts there that are owned by billionaires that cost more than it will take to get Pioneer operational. So, I mean, it's not like we don't need ISS level funds to get it to work. Let's see here. Aiden's asking, do you see space climbers as a benefit if one was built? And correct me if I'm wrong here, Aiden, but I'm thinking you're talking about space elevators, something that would ride some sort of tether to space. And yes, I mean, anything that lowers the cost to get material to orbit will be a benefit. And especially if you don't have to deal with the G forces of a kinetic launch with like a rocket, right? Um, Rhonda Stevenson, our CEO, was actually at one of the spin launch tests a couple of months ago. Spin launch is claiming to be able to get product to orbit at an incredibly cheap price, but the G forces make it to where you really are limited on what you can put to orbit. Rockets would be kind of the next stage down from that. One of the challenges with space elevators is once you're in space, you're not necessarily in the orbit of the space station. So you would still have to transfer materials to whatever orbit the station's in. But at that point, you're not dealing with friction losses from the Earth's atmosphere. So the amount of propellant is less. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to both, right? Okay, so Dolly 0909 is asking, you mentioned new funding. Is that also net capital? So we really can't talk about future funding until we file the paperwork with the SEC. But I will say that we are leaving no stone unturned. We're looking at all sorts of funding options, equity and debt, as well as grants and proposals. So the summary actually today, I pulled it primarily from the newsletter that we sent out this last week. There's a lot of stuff that didn't make in that newsletter. We've submitted a number of SBIR proposals. Those are small business innovation. What's the R stand for? Basically, they're grants. They're grants through Air Force, NASA, National Science Foundation, different organizations that make funds available to help small businesses innovate and develop technologies. So we have a number of those applications in. We have some proposals in for some loan guarantees through various government entities, and then looking at equity and debt financing. So we are looking at and then customers as well, and working to get customer deposits and consulting agreements with customers. We're also looking at near-term products, and so we have some products that we've developed as we've developed Pioneer Station that we can spin off and sell to other companies that are developing space stations. So we're exploring those avenues. We've had talks with most of who you would consider our competitors in the commercial space station business. And I think right now we're all trying to sell components to everybody else, right? So Sierra Space has been hitting us up for years to try to buy their life habitats. We've got some cool habitat technologies we've been trying to sell to other companies. So We'll see whoever's got the best product typically wins, and we're pretty excited about our product offerings. We think that they are far superior to what the other companies are working on. So again, long answer to a short question, but nothing is off the table right now. Once we have the funds to build Pioneer Station and we're cash flow positive, then we'll start to pull back on what we're looking at. But right now, everything's on the table. Okay, well, with that, everything legal is on the table. I'm sure there's some YouTube commenter who's going to watch this and and propose something illegal. No, everything that's legal. So with that, we're at the end of our time here today. I'll just say, it's been a pleasure being able to interact with you. Thank you so much for your comments. We look forward to future Q&As and other interactions with all of you. And as we try to balance what we can talk about publicly and what we have to have a bit more proprietary secrecy on just to keep our competitive advantage, these communication channels are going to evolve over time. But on behalf of everybody at Orbital Assembly, I just want to thank you for your support, and we look forward to working together and making really space accessible to you and your friends and your family. And it's exciting times are ahead. Exciting things are happening, and it's fun to be a part of it. Okay, well, with that, I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.